Hello everyone, welcome back to Blockman Editor tutorial. In these videos, we will give you a complete introduction to the Blockman Editor. In this lesson, we will continue to learn about skill component. Go to the editor and select skill in the game components view. Create a new basic skill. Let's take a look at the skill consumption properties of basic skill. Start with consumption of blocks or items. We first click the Add button on the right to add a consumption item. There are two properties in the consumption item, namely item name and quantity. If you design a certain skill that requires the entity to consume a certain amount of specific blocks or items, then you can configure it here. Note that when the blocks or items required to cast the skill are insufficient, the entity will not be able to cast the skill. If the casted skills require multiple blocks or items, you can click the Add button to add more consumption items for configuration. In the game, in addition to the health points, the entity also has a hunger cost. You can set the entity to consume a certain hunger cost to cast the skill. If the entity's hunger cost is not enough, it will not be able to cast skills. For the property container depletion, similar to the magazine, it needs to be used in conjunction with firearms items. For example, when we design a shooting skill, if the container depletion property is enabled, we can specify an auto-reload skill. The skill type is reload. When the filler of the firearm is used up, the skill will trigger for automatic reloading. However, you need to pay attention here. If you want to reload the firearm successfully, you need to attach this skill and auto-reload skill to the firearms. As for number of consumption, it refers to the amount of filler required each time when a skill is casted. For example, every time a shot is fired, one bullet is consumed. Next, let's take a look at the performance properties of the basic skill. When we enable reticle, a reticle will appear on the entity's screen. Usually, shooting skills will enable this function. Generally, when an entity casts a skill, it usually makes some specified actions. For example, when an entity shoots with a gun, the entity will make a shooting action. In the editor, we achieve the above effect by configuring the cast action property in the skill performance properties. You can select some actions preset by the editor in the drop-down action list. You can also select the appropriate action in the action list of the actor editor according to the design requirements of the skill, and copy the action name to the cast action property. If custom action duration is checked, you can set the continuous playback duration of the current skill cast action by yourself. If the skill you design can be casted by long pressing the skill button, then you can also specify the action of the entity when the button is long pressed. This function can be achieved by configuring the cast animation property, which is configured in the same way as the cast action. Of course, you can also limit the continuous playback duration of the cast animation by configuring the cast animation duration property. For the sound effect property, it is used to play a specified sound effect when a skill is casted. For example, the sound of gunshots, when shooting, the sound of swinging swords, etc. We can decide whether to synchronize the sound effect when the skill is casted with the checkbox of audible to self only. For the effect property, it is used to play the specified effect when the skill is casted. We can decide whether to synchronize the special effects when the skill is casted by checking, or unchecking visible to self only. We can also adjust the position, angle, and size of the special effect by adjusting the properties such as special effect position, special effect launch angle, and effect size. Next, we're going to make a spinning storm skill. First, create a new basic skill, and set the skill type to missile. Then set the missile's launch direction to yourself. Click the Add button to the right of the missile property to add a missile setting item. Click Missile in the Game Components view and create a new missile. Adjust the missile collision volume. Then write event logic for the newly created missile. When the missile hits the entity, reduce the HP of the hit entity. After completing the event logic, go back to the editor and select the newly created missile in the missile setting of the skill. More details about missile will be explained in subsequent courses. Click Casting, choose a suitable icon for the new skill, and the position of the icon. Select the actor file in the Assets view, and double-click to open the actor editor. Find an appropriate action for the actor when casting the skill, then copy the action's name. Select the newly created skill, click the performance property of the skill, and paste the action name you just copied into the cast action property. A skill sound effect is prepared in the Assets view. We can drag it to the audio selection button. Then adjust the volume of the sound effect. In the Asset view, an effect is available. Drag the effect to the Effect Preview box. Click on the entity in the Game Components view, select the player, add an entity skill setting to the player's combat properties, and select the newly created skill. Finally, we place an NPC entity in the scene and run the game. We use the design skills to attack the NPC, and we can see that all the effects we just set are successfully executed. That's all for this video. We hope it can help you on your way to a great creator. If you want to know more about the editor, you can comment below the video or post on the official forum. See you in the next video.